Hi, welcome to the Biosecurity for the Dairy Herd webinar. My name is John Parsons. I'm a vet from Cornwall where we're working mainly with dairy practices, but lots of this is applicable for beef herds as well. So I'm going to talk today about biosecurity. And first things first, what is biosecurity? So your dictionary definition is the methods used to stop a disease or infection from spreading from one person, animal or place to others. So for our dairy herd, we're really thinking about preventing the risk of entry of disease into the herd from either other animals, people or fomites, which kind of cover all objects and machinery and that kind of thing. So which diseases do we need to consider? So the common five are going to be BVD, IBR, Lepto, Neospora and Iones, but also there's other ones we need to think about. So TB is going to be a big one wherever you are in the country. Foot and mouth, biosecurity is a really important factor in controlling foot and mouth. And then lots of other diseases like Salmonella, Mycoplasma, Schmallenberg, digital dermatitis, Campylobacter, Staph aureus mastitis. And then also to consider the risk of buying in fluke and worms, and particularly buying in resistant fluke and worms where you currently might not have a problem with resistance. And the point to consider here is there's so many different diseases and all of them have different routes of entry and different ways of spreading between a herd, so it's important that a biosecurity plan covers all of these. So the main ways disease can come onto your farm. So the big one is animals coming onto your farm. And that could be animals you're buying in, animals escaping, could be over a fence, or could be through shared rivers and waterways and that kind of thing. We can have people coming onto the farm, and people are going to be coming onto your farm on a daily basis. And we've got vehicles and equipment and any like machinery or anything coming onto the farm. And then we've also got wildlife reservoirs as well. So, brought-in animals is our first point. So, it's one of the major risks of bringing disease in. There's a number of different ways you can source brought-in animals. So, there are high health status herds where they might be accredited for diseases like BVD or IBR. And they're going to be very low risk for bringing those diseases in. You can be sourcing through a market, and the important thing to remember with the market is even if the animal's disease-free at the point it enters the market, there's a lot of mixing going on at markets, and the chance of picking up something actually at a market is slightly higher. And the big thing for brought-in animals is always to have vet input, so you know what's currently the status of your herd and what's the risk of buying something in, and what testing needs to go on. All brought-in animals need to enter isolation and might need any further testing. Isolation always needs to be available on any herd, but it's particularly important you think about the practicalities of isolation for a milking cow. At the bottom there, I did put the higher bull, which can be a bit of a disease nightmare in some cases. So a higher bull can go from herd to herd and have a lot of cow contact. And one of the things you particularly worry about with a higher bull is that he can spread Campylobacter actually in his sheath. And so if he's going from herd to herd, then your bulls need to be kind of tested for diseases and also sheath washed to prevent the spread of Campylobacter. Then we've got the risk of animals coming on that you didn't really expect them to come on. So not animals you're buying in, but animals that might escape in, or animals from your neighbours or something like that. And generally these animals might be from an unknown disease source at the point where they break in. And so there's a risk of them bringing anything with them. And sometimes these animals can come on and escape back without you realising, but have managed to contaminate your pasture or meet some animals and have an issue. And so it's really important that you've got kind of good biosecurity between you and your neighbours. And so that means kind of plenty of decent fencing and a 3-metre gap on your fences to make sure there's no nose-to-nose contact. And where possible, cattle aren't grazed in fields next to neighbouring cattle. So we'll also cover people coming onto the farm. So there's a lot of people coming onto a dairy farm on a day-to-day basis. So there's a little list there. You've got the tanker driver that will be coming at least every other day. You've got people like consultants and vets and sales reps moving from farm to farm, and the potential of carrying disease from one farm to another. It's very important that disinfection points are available for everyone coming onto farm, and this disinfection point is is available on entry to the farm, and so you don't have to go walking to find water and disinfectant to be able to disinfect. So as soon as you park up, you can just disinfect and remove that risk. It's important you're using a suitable product for disinfection. There's a number of different disinfectants out there on the market, but each disease might only be sensitive to certain disinfectants, and so it's worth just checking with your vet which disinfectant is going to be most appropriate for your farm. And if you can limit access to key areas of the farm, then that's will prevent some access and some actual cow contact with these people. I've put dogs down there just because dogs can provide a risk of spreading Neospora to cattle, and so if you've got footpaths or anything crossing a land or dogs coming on, it's worth just trying to keep dogs away from calving areas in particular, and also from any feed stores or pasture. Then we've got fomites and objects coming onto the farm. So this could be pieces of equipment, or it might be vehicles moving from farm to farm. You might have shared machinery that might go between a number of farms, and contractors coming on where actually they're going to several farms. You need to think about how you can limit disease coming in on any of these things. So is there scope for cleansing and disinfecting? And maybe with the smaller products, you can think about how you can scrub them with a suitable disinfectant that might reduce the disease risk, but it becomes a bit more complicated with large machinery. If you think about a slurry tanker moving from farm to farm, that's slightly different than a dehorning iron or something like that. So you need to think about what can be done, and so is there scope for using disinfectants in kind of matting or anything like that for driving over, or disinfecting wheels as people drive on. There's a number of options out there and a number of disinfectants about that could play a role in helping to limit the disease entry on any of these objects. So we come on to our summary then. So biosecurity is a massive topic, and really it needs to come into play on a day-to-day basis on the farm, and there's going to be a disease risk day-to-day, and so you need to be working to minimise that. The best bet is to discuss with a vet and have it written in a health plan with a specific biosecurity plan that will be tailored for your farm and limit the risks to your farm. It's important to know your disease status and maintain it. You always need to have isolation facilities, and you need to make sure that these isolation facilities can be cleansed and disinfected in between use, and they're always available and ready to go. Closed herds will have a lower risk of introducing disease because there shouldn't be animals moving in, but as we've discussed above, there are still a number of risks, and so don't be complacent if you have got a closed herd, because you still need to think about biosecurity. Long-term biosecurity will promote and maintain a healthy herd, and will prevent any nasty surprises popping up with new disease entering. There's more coverage on cleansing and disinfecting that will take place in a calf health webinar, which is coming up later on in the year, so I'd advise you to also look out for that one, because there'll be specific points on how you can use cleansing and disinfecting to minimise disease risks whilst on farm.